The plan was 2 beers and a burger with my best friend. First time in the flesh, after 2 years of headsets. He was passing through Madison, he said. One night in town on his way east, some contract job in Pennsylvania. The plan started coming apart at the parking meter outside the bar. He fed it without looking at it. Quarters already in his hand, card slot ignored, done in 5 seconds. 3 days into his first visit to my city, and the man paid for parking like he does it every week. By the way, I'm Emory. 33. I do estimates for a fence company, which means I drive this town all day and know it street by street. The friend was Boone. We met in a squad lobby 2 years back and just clicked, the way you do maybe twice in your life. Voice chat almost every night. He talked me through my dad's surgery. I talked him through a layoff. Boone from Denver, IT contractor, mountains out his window. That was the man I knew. I want to be fair to myself here. The meter thing registered as nothing. A coin guy. Fine. Inside, it kept going. He walked to the bathroom without asking where it was. Past the kitchen, right side, no scanning around. When we sat down, he told me we'd picked a good night, because Tuesday trivia packs the place and it gets loud. I laughed and asked how he knew that. He said, reviews online, man. I do my homework. And honestly, that worked on me. That's the part that stings now. He handed me a normal explanation and I took it, because the whole night was the thing I'd been looking forward to for 2 months. We ordered. He was exactly himself, which I need you to understand. Same voice, same jokes, same guy who knew everything about me, because I told him everything. There was no mask to slip. The best night I'd had in a year was already the strangest, and I couldn't feel it yet. Then the curds. I mentioned I hadn't eaten since noon, and he said we should hit the Culvers on Verona Road after, because they drop fresh curds after 11. That is a local argument. That is a thing guys at my shop fight about. Denver doesn't know that. I looked at him a second too long and he grinned and tapped his phone, like, the internet exists, Emory. A little later the bartender came by with his tray and nodded at Boone. Said the back booth was open if we wanted it. At Boone. Not at me, and I've been going there for years. Boone said we were fine where we were. Friendly town, he said to me. And then, small, almost nothing. He said that hail last month was something, huh? We had hail in May, dented half the trucks at my work. I said, you got it too? He blinked once and said Denver gets hail all the time. Which is true. It does. We toasted to something at the end. Whatever it was, it's gone now. I've reached for it a dozen times since, and my head just hands me the empty glasses. I walked him out a little before midnight. His car was a block down, and this is where the night stopped pretending. He'd told me he flew into Milwaukee and rented something. What we walked up to had Wisconsin plates and a summer of dead bugs baked across the nose. Through the back window, in the streetlight, I could see the car was lived in. A pillow with no pillowcase. A gym bag gone soft at the corners. Flattened food bags in the footwell. And on the corner of the windshield, a little numbered sticker. A resident parking permit. I quote fences for a living, and I'd bid a job across from that apartment complex in March. Far side of town. 11 minutes from my house. I shook his hand. I told him to text me from the road. I drove home the long way, watching my mirrors, feeling insane for doing it. For the next week, everything was normal, which was its own kind of awful. He texted from the road. Rest stop in Indiana. Some diner in Ohio. Meanwhile, I pulled up the weather history for Denver for our hail week. Clear skies, all 7 days. I sat with that for a long time. On Wednesday, a quote run took me past that apartment complex. The job was real, I didn't invent it, but I took the entrance lane slow on the way by. His car sat under the carport in a numbered spot. Space 38. Same bugs on the nose. Parked the way you park at home, backed in, settled. I kept driving and made myself not do it again. I could have just asked him. I know. But a man who builds a story that patient doesn't fold when you ask. He folds the story around you. So I tested it instead. Thursday night, on voice chat, squad all in, I dropped it casual. Said I had a quote out on Atwood on Saturday, and that I'd be at the diner there first, 8:30, carbs before crawling around a yard all morning. Boone was in Pennsylvania by then, officially. 900 miles gone. Saturday I parked across the street at 10 to 8 and sat low in my truck. At 20 past, Boone walked in. Ball cap, but it was him. He took the window table, ordered coffee, and watched the door. He never texted me. He couldn't. He wasn't in town. He just sat there with his coffee, checking the door every time it opened. Waiting for me to walk into my own life so he could be surprised by it. At 9 my phone buzzed in my hand. Boone. A photo of a turnpike sunrise, guardrail, and fog could have been anywhere on earth. The caption said, Harrisburg by lunch. I looked from the photo to the window and watched him take a sip of the coffee he wasn't in town to order. I watched my best friend wait for me for 50 minutes. Then he paid and left, and I let him go, and I drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel. Sunday I went back to the bar alone and asked the bartender about the guy I'd been in with. He didn't even have to think. Back booth guy, he said. Been coming in a couple months, easy. Most weeks. Always asks who's in on trivia nights. I asked one more thing, because I had to. Did he ever come in with anybody? The bartender wiped down the rail and thought about it. No, he said. Always alone. Always took the seat facing the door. A couple months. Wait, I need to say that right, because it's the whole story. The man had not come to Madison to see me. He'd been surfacing. The meetup wasn't his arrival. It was him walking out of a life he'd already built around mine, 11 minutes away, and introducing himself as new. I never confronted him. People think that's the strange part, and maybe it is. But he knew my truck, my job sites, my routes, my parents' town. All of it given freely, 2 years of it, in the dark, with a headset on. You don't kick a thing that patient. I just went quiet slowly. Shorter replies. Fewer nights on. He starved along with the friendship, and his texts thinned out, and in March the bartender told a buddy of mine the back booth guy stopped coming in. Nobody knows where he parks now. That sentence is what I got instead of an ending. I still run with the squad some nights. But I ration myself now. City, gone from the profile. Job, gone. I keep the weather to myself. It sounds paranoid until you try living it. Talking to people you like with your hand cupped over your own life, like a keypad. And every good night he ever typed me, all 2 years of them, I used to picture mountains when I read those. Now I picture the drive. 4 stoplights. 11 minutes. The far side of town.
So the knock came on a Tuesday, a little after 7. I looked through the peephole, and my stomach dropped before my brain caught up. Standing on my mat was a face I had only ever seen through a screen. Greta, my best friend of 4 years, who lived 600 miles away in Dayton, Ohio. She had 2 suitcases with her. She knocked again, softer. Then she said my name. Winnie? I can hear your TV. I need to back up, because you can't feel that sentence the way I felt it without knowing what we were. We met on a houseplant forum, the propagation boards, trading tips on a stubborn Hoya. It became messages, then voice notes, then this daily thing, first coffee of the morning, last check-in at night. I run the front office at an elementary school, and she knew every kid's name I'd ever mentioned. And we mailed each other things. That's what our corner of the internet does. Cuttings wrapped in wet paper towel, seeds in little envelopes, her handwriting on my doormat once a month. She had my address because I gave it to her, back when giving it felt like the nicest part of the whole hobby. So when I say a stranger was at my door, understand, she wasn't a stranger. That would have been easier. We'd actually met once before, in person, a year earlier. She drove down for the plant swap at the fairgrounds and stayed the weekend. And the weekend was, it was mostly good. But it was a lot. She ordered for me at lunch, already knew what I'd want, and she wasn't wrong, which somehow made it worse. When I went out Saturday night with work friends, she stayed at my place. And when I got back, she was quiet in a way that had weight to it. And she kept saying we should live closer. Joking. By the fifth time it wasn't landing like a joke. After she left, I did the slow fade. Not a fight, nothing to point at. Longer gaps between replies. Shorter voice notes. I told myself friendships breathe. The packages started about a month into the fade. Things I hadn't asked for. A grow light. A brass mister, the nice kind. A mug with AW and AG painted on it, holding hands. Then the notes inside changed. The last one before that Tuesday was one line. I know you're reading these. Then the knock. The suitcases. My name through the door, with the TV cold busting me for being home. I didn't open it. I stood in my own hallway with my thumb over a 911 I couldn't justify to myself, because what was I going to say? My friend visited me? She knocked for a while, gentle the whole time, like patience was a kindness she was doing me. Then the wheels of the suitcases went back down the walk. I texted her that this wasn't okay, that you can't just show up. She sent back that she'd wanted it to be a surprise, that she'd taken a room nearby, and then a line I still think about. We have so much time now. I asked how long she was staying. She wrote, that depends on us. That night I looked up the extended stay places near the interstate. 3 of them inside 10 minutes of my door. I never found out which one held her, and not knowing did its own quiet work on me. Every parking lot I passed that month had her in it, until proven otherwise. The next 2 weeks she was just around. I saw her at the Harris Teeter on Forest Hill, 2 aisles over, not shopping. She turned up near the school at pickup time holding 2 sweet teas and waved at me through the fence like we had plans. I remembered, she mouthed. My coworker Dana clocked a woman in the parking deck twice, standing by my level, and described her jacket without me saying a word. Then she came to the school itself. My front desk, on my lunch break, with Dana covering. A woman asked for me by my first name, Dana said, and when Dana offered to take a message, she wrote one on the visitor sheet instead. In the box marked relationship, she'd put one word. Family. I pulled that page before the office could file it, and I stood in the copy room holding it for a long time. And the voice notes kept coming, warmer than ever. One of them, on a Thursday while I was at work, said my maidenhair fern on the porch was looking thirsty, honey. You want to know how she knew which unit was mine? I told her. Of course I did. She'd stayed there. She knew my porch the way she knew my coffee order. Nothing was hidden from her, and that's the thing about this kind of scared. There was nothing to find out. I'd done all the telling myself freely for 4 years, one good morning at a time. I bought a doorbell camera that weekend. And then nothing happened for 4 days, and honestly, I let myself exhale. Maybe the tease and the deck were coincidence stacked on coincidence. Maybe she'd gone back to Dayton. The notification came in at 2:53 in the morning. I watched it live, sitting up in bed, phone bright in the dark. Greta was on my porch. Not knocking. Not reaching for anything. Standing square to the door, hands folded in front of her, the way you stand at a viewing. She stayed like that for 41 minutes. I know because I watched all of it, every minute, too scared to move, like the camera was a window she could feel me through. And then, at the end, she did the thing I can't get out of my head. She took a water bottle out of her purse, and she watered my fern. Tipped it slow, careful, the way I would. Straightened the doormat with the side of her foot. And walked away. The officers watched the clip twice. I'll keep this part short because there's not much of it. Knocking on a door isn't a crime. Gifts aren't a crime. Watering a plant at 3 in the morning, the older one said, and then didn't finish the sentence, because there was nothing on the end of it. They gave me an incident number. That's all there was to give. The morning after the porch video, the drive to work just isn't in my head. I was locking my door, and then I was at my desk with the first bell ringing, and nothing in between. I broke my lease. Paid a fee I'm still paying off, moved across the river, rented a P.O. box for anything that matters. I left the forum quietly, no goodbye post. And I don't mail pieces of my plants to anyone anymore, which sounds like nothing and isn't. It was my favorite thing, being that kind of easy with people. She took that specific softness with her when she finally went home, wherever home was by then. One package followed me. Mail forwarding worked exactly the way it's supposed to. Her handwriting, my old address, and a yellow sticker with my new one printed by the system. Cheerful as a coupon. I stood on my new porch working out what the Postal Service had just done for her. They say the sender can't see where it forwards. I've decided to believe that. Most days I manage it. I drove the package to the post office unopened and refused it. Returned to sender. It's the only message of hers I ever answered with my feet. You can sign out of an account. You can block a number, leave a forum, delete 4 years of good mornings in one long ugly night. And I did. But there's no signing out of a street. She taught me that. It's the one lesson from the whole friendship she never meant to give me. And it's the only one I kept.
The urgent care nurse put down that I fell from a window. She looked at me for a while before she typed it, because men my age don't fall out of windows at 4 in the morning. But that's what I had for her. The window was on the second floor of a house in West Virginia, 6 hours from my apartment. The man who owned the house had been my best friend for 3 years. I'd met him in person for the first time that afternoon. I'd rather not attach my name to this one. He knows my name. Some background, quick. I'm 34. I work the parts counter at a dealership in Louisville, and my week is the counter, the Kroger by my place, and 2 race nights. Sim racing. 4 of us ran a private league for years, every Tuesday and Thursday, headsets on, same voices in my ear more than my own family. The one who organized it all went by Harlan. Older than the rest of us, 50-something. Owned a machine shop, he said, and a place in the hills outside Beckley. He was building a land room in that house, and he talked about the room the way other men talk about boats. Here's the thing I should have weighed more. By last fall, the league was down to 2 of us. One guy quit after Harlan went at him over a missed race night, a fight that was somehow about loyalty by the end of it. The other one just faded, and when I'd bring him up, Harlan would go flat and change lanes. Which left me. And I remember feeling flattered about that. I was the friend he'd never once turned on. You can probably already see it. I couldn't. The invite came on a Sunday in October. You should finally come out, he wrote. Long weekend. Bring nothing. I've got everything. The drive was 6 hours and the last 40 minutes of it had no signal. I'd joked about that when we planned the weekend, and he'd said the Wi-Fi's fast, you won't need bars. A gravel road went up a holler and his house was the last thing on it. Nothing after but trees. He came off the porch and hugged me, and I want to be honest, it was a good moment. 3 years of a voice, and the voice had a body, and the body clapped me on the back and took my bag. If you've never had a friendship live inside a headset, I can't explain what that hug solves. It solves everything. For about an hour. The first wrong thing was the shop. There's no shop on that property. I asked for the tour, 3 years of machine shop stories, and he waved down the holler and said it's in town. Town was 30 minutes behind me. I stood in his yard doing quiet math. A man who works 30 minutes away doesn't live this far up a road this bad. Then I put the math away, because we were having a good day. The land room was real. I'll give it that. Immaculate. 2 stations, cable runs like surgery. And the second station was mine. I don't mean set aside for me. I mean it was my rig. Same wheel, same pedals, same headset, same model, all of it new. I told him I set up piece by piece over the years, the way you do. He'd bought it all back into existence in his spare room. I said, that's wild, man. He said, I wanted you comfortable. It sat wrong and I couldn't say why yet. A gift is for after you arrive. This had been waiting. Dinner was chilly he was proud of, and the living room was full of framed people. A woman and 2 kids at a lake. A graduation. I asked, easy as I could, and the answers didn't stack. The sister's kids, then his own boy, then a story with dates that fought each other. Everything in that living room was somebody's life. I just couldn't make it be his. Around 10 he took my phone off the arm of the couch, friendly, said the guest room outlets were dead and he'd charge it in the kitchen. And passing the front door I noticed the bowl where I'd dropped my keys when I came in. The bowl was empty. I told myself the story you tell yourself. He's odd. He's older. He lives alone at the end of a road. The guest room door had a hasp on it. On the outside. New steel, bright screws, and a fine line of sawdust still along the baseboard where somebody had drilled recently and swept lazy. A hasp is for a padlock. On the outside of a bedroom door, in a house with 1 guest in it. The door swung free, no lock hanging in the thing. Old houses, I told myself. People lock rooms for storage. I actually got in bed. It embarrasses me even now, saying that. I lay there in the dark assembling reasons, and the house settled, and sometime after 2 in the morning the hallway floor started to talk. Slow boards, one at a time, coming up the hall. And stopping outside my door. No knock. The knob never moved. Somehow that was worse. A long piece of nothing stood on the other side of that door, and then the boards went back down the hall, as slow as they'd come. I did not sleep after that. I went looking for my charger, quiet, on my hands and knees, and that's how I found the bag under the bed. Hardware store bag, folded over. Zip ties. A padlock, still in the blister pack. And a receipt, which I read 3 times by the lamp. The date on it was 5 weeks old. I did the math on the floor of his guest room. 5 weeks back was the Sunday he wrote, you should finally come out. He bought the lock before the invite. Before. The weekend didn't go wrong. The weekend arrived exactly the way he'd shopped for it. My phone was in his kitchen. My keys were somewhere in his house. I eased down the hall once. His bedroom door stood open on a made bed with nobody in it. I did not go looking for where in the dark he was. I went back and worked the window instead. Storm window pinned shut with finished nails, every one of them, except the one over the porch roof. I've thought about that mercy a lot since. I don't think it was mercy. I think it was the one he hadn't gotten to. I went out it with my boots in my hand, and I burned my palm on the frame going over, and the porch roof held, and the drop didn't. My ankle folded when I hit the yard. I don't remember deciding anything after that. I remember gravel. Halfway down the holler, light swung in behind me. His truck came down that road at a walking pace, high beams on my back, and it never sped up and it never passed me. A mile of that. He didn't chase me. Chase ain't the word for what that was. He escorted me off the property he'd packed for me, and the worst sound on that road was how little his engine was working. There was a gas station where the gravel met the state road, one of those all-night islands of fluorescent light. The woman working it took one look at my face, locked the door behind me, and made the call. His truck sat across the two-lane the whole time, lights on, long enough for the coffee pot behind her to finish brewing. Then it rolled off, no hurry to it at all. Deputies went up the holler that morning. What they found in that guest room I only ever heard secondhand, and I made sure it stayed secondhand. He was charged that winter. That's one sentence, and it's all the room I'm giving him. My car came back on a flatbed 2 weeks later. It had spent a day and a night in that man's driveway without me. For a long while I couldn't drive it without doing math I didn't want to do. The league still exists, technically. Dead most nights. But every once in a while, somebody gets into his old account. Whoever it is doesn't race. The tag just shows up in the lobby, sits there a while, and goes dark again. I watch it happen from a profile with no name on it now, and I never once messaged it, and it never once messaged me. I used to think I was the last friend Harlan had, and honestly, I wore that a little. The others fell away and I stayed, loyal, the good one. Standing in that gas station light with my boots in my hand, I finally did that math right. I wasn't the last friend. I was the one who said yes.